Welcome to The Reaction with me, Sarah Vine, and the lovely Andrew Pearce. Coming up, the election. What else? There's not much else to talk about, but we're going to try and make it fun.
We can talk about football.
You can talk about, yes, we could try. We're going to talk a bit about football.
A little bit.
And maybe sandwiches. And we're also going to take some questions.
We are.
So have you been watching the football?
No. Have to tell you, I have a confession.
Go on.
On Sunday when we played Slovakia?
There are some people.
Anyway, team beginning with S. I went to a great friend's house who male readers will know very well, Amanda Patel.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple of well-known broadcasters there.
Oh, go on, drop the names.
The Mars, Andrew Marr and his wife, and David Davis, who I sincerely hope holds his seat in the general election because he's a proper Tory. And to my amazement, they were downstairs watching the football, and I said, do enjoy it, because Amanda has a lovely roof terrace, bathed in early evening sunlight. I'm going up there with my vodka, so I did, and there was an instant insurrection, and they all followed me, with Amanda protesting, what about the football? Yes, what about the football?
Amanda.
And that's where we remained.
Amanda, shame on you. Well, I was sitting by the river reading my book, not really paying attention or realising that there was even a football match on, because my son was away, and then suddenly the entire river erupted in a sort of giant
mini tidal wave
of delight. I thought,
was that when we equalised or we scored the winner?
I think that was when the boy whose name I forget.
Yes, Bellingham.
Yes, Jude Bellingham.
Yeah, Hey Jude,
yes.
which is why the Beatles song is racing up the charts.
Okay. Anyway, yes, football is what we're doing.
And we're playing Switzerland on Saturday.
Yes. Who beat Italy, I think.
Yes.
I do know that because my son has been teasing me ceaselessly about it.
And Italy were the champions, but are out. So I was doing some broadcasting and I heard Stephen Flynn, who is the SNP leader in the Westminster Parliament, obviously he's up for re-election, refusing, despite the fact Scotland were humiliated and booted out in the first stages of the competition, to endorse England, to wish them well, to congratulate them. So I put something out on social media saying, congratulations, Stephen Flynn. You've just lost the vote of any floating voters, because there are quite a few English people living in Scotland who will be voting in Scotland. And it was seen, the last time I saw it, the tweet was seen by 947,000 people.
Oh my goodness.
The response was, I was completely stitched up in the SNP supporting newspaper up in Scotland. They've rigged up a picture of me with a tube of Toblerone. Why Toblerone? Because apparently Switzerland produced Toblerone. So that was supposed to be funny and witty. Actually, Mr. Flynn, not terribly. Just support England. When Andy Murray said anyone but England, he regretted it. But he was a wee boy. He was 18.
Wouldn't Swiss cheese have been more appropriate?
Anything. Look,
anyway,
I don't follow football, but if Scotland were in the quarterfinals, I would say, come on, Scotland.
I think there's a difference between being a football fan and being xenophobic.
And a fierce nationalist. Exactly. That anything to do with England must be wrong.
Anyway, off the topic of football and back onto the topic of politics, which is obviously the same thing anyway. Rishi Sunak was on the television this morning, on the sofa, on the breakfast sofa, talking about. He was asked what his favourite food was, and he said, I thought it was quite interesting. He said a sandwich is his favourite food.
But he didn't elaborate.
Didn't say which sandwich.
No, because
what's your favourite sandwich?
There is no doubt. I love brown bread, preferably cucumber with tuna. With some pepper, no butter.
Twisted pepper.
I absolutely love it. It's my favourite, particularly in the summer.
My favourite sandwich is, and this is quite controversial, Marks and Spencer's cheese and celery.
Why is that controversial?
I don't know, because I think it's quite old-fashioned.
I don't think that makes it controversial.
Do you not?
No. I didn't know they did cheese and celery sandwiches.
Honestly.
And is the celery really crisp?
It's really crunchy and nice, and the cheese is really kind of cheddary and nice.
The only time I put lots of salt on food is when I have a stick of celery. It is fantastic.
But it reminds me a bit of Biscuit Gate, which elder readers will probably remember from a few years ago.
2009,
where Gordon Brown was asked what his favourite. I mean, quite the most innocuous question.
Yeah, he was talking to Mumsnet of all people.
They said, "What's your favourite biscuit?" And he couldn't answer. Give an answer.
And this saga went on for days. David Cameron, who's Tory leader, pitched in immediately. He liked some form of biscuit so he could have cheese.
Yes.
Nick Clegg liked a jammy Dodger.
Yes.
And eventually Brown relented to national pressure because it became known as Biscuit Gate. He said, a biscuit anything with chocolate on. Oh, God. He just couldn't think outside the box, could he? Do you remember he said his favourite group was Arctic Monkeys? He's never heard of them.
Never heard of them. I think my favourite biscuit, probably, if I'm honest, is custard cream.
Well, how comes you've just demolished half a packet of chocolate digestives?
Because they're dark chocolate digestives. They're my second favourite biscuit.
Right.
But I shouldn't really eat chocolate. Custard creams are terribly bad for you.
Are they?
Yeah, no, they're just completely made out of
pure
numbers,
sugar,
aren't they? I mean, there's nothing.
Yeah.
Anyway, listen.
Lots of people now, 20% of people now in our general elections use a postal vote.
Mm-hmm.
It suits them if they're perhaps older and more difficult to get
My
to
mother?
a vote. Yeah, busy working mums, people who've might be away on holiday, and tens of thousands of them didn't arrive in time. Huge problem in Scotland, if that was the case, because the schools have already closed down, so a lot of Scottish people have gone on holiday. But in some constituencies, such as Kemi Badenoch, Saffron Walden, 2,600 postal votes did not arrive. So these people are, unless they can get to the polling station
in person,
their
vote won't count.
They are disenfranchised.
Okay, so
and if it's a close election, there will be a challenge.
I smell a rat there because I think Kemi Badenoch is the best chance for the Tories' new leader post this Armageddon.
Oh, you're assuming that Rishi Sunak's going to resign, are you?
Well, I don't think he can stay if he loses.
I think he should stay for a few months.
Yeah, I think he should stay for a few months and do a sort of orderly handover.
Yeah.
But honestly, I don't think that.
No.
And so I'm just, you can always, if someone's dangerous.
And this time we can't blame the Royal Mail because somebody at the local authority, which deals with all the postal votes, has said it is human error and somebody may have to resign over it. Why may have to? If 2,600 people have been cheated out of their vote, I mean, the election was called 6 weeks ago. It doesn't take that long to get a letter, the ballot paper in the post.
No. So I have a question. Why can't people vote electronically on the internet webs?
Well, it is amazing that we're pretty much still voting the way we were 100 years ago.
Exactly. I mean, the thing is that, everything is done online. There's plenty of layers of security.
Yep.
It should just be possible for you to have a unique voter number. You put it in and you cast your vote. And then it doesn't matter whether you're on the moon or...
And they did it during COVID, if you remember, Sarah. The Parliament didn't sit. And they voted electronically from wherever they were. And a great friend of mine who's a member of the House of Lords was at his holiday home in Sydney. You love these peers, don't you? Working hard all year round. But was able to vote. I wrote about it in my column. The first time a vote had been cast in a British Parliament from Australia. Electronically. And it was very simple. Why did they not keep it, the system?
No, I mean, but I think for the electorate, you have to register to vote online anyway.
Yeah.
So it would be simple to just have a sort of special code that you use.
And we could also, if people want to vote in person, we could make it easier and do what they do on the continent, God forbid. Perish the thought. Vote on a Sunday? Why not? Most people don't go to work on a Sunday.
That's true.
Mums are at home quite often, or dad's at home. And you could even make it a family outing. Take the kids with you. No, because I think you want kids to be engaged. You want kids engaged in the political process.
I think you might still get a bit of jiggery-pokery, but I think broadly speaking, it'd be quite difficult, actually, if you had electronic voting for people to, trick it.
Yeah, and of course we've tried to make it more secure.
Unless the Chinese hacked it, which is always a possibility.
Yeah, because we're trying to make voting more secure anyway, because you now have to take photographic ID.
Yeah.
So I was having a fight with the former Labour minister today. Said just a deliberate attempt by the Tories to stop people voting. And I said, hang on, are you a passionate champion of the European Union and Britain's main? Yes, absolutely. I said, how many countries in Europe did not have photographic ID until a year ago? 3. And we were one of them. They've all got photographic ID.
Of course.
It's straightforward.
Yeah, you're right. In Italy or France, you have to carry it by law.
Yeah.
And Spain.
Well,
they can stop you. If you don't have your ID, you're in trouble.
And effectively, every time you use a bus or a tube pass these days, it's a form of ID. They're tracking you.
Reform.
Well, I think...
Your friends.
Yes.
They're very cross with you, aren't they?
They are
Andrew?
very cross with me because I've written one or two.
Why are they such babies? Why are they so sensitive? Because you've written a couple of mildly critical pieces.
I pointed out that Reform is a wholly owned subsidiary of Nigel Farage.
Correct.
It's
not a lie.
It is listed at Companies House. Yeah. He is the 53% shareholder. He has a 53% shareholding. There are 15 shares. He has 8 of them.
Right.
No other political party operates in that manner.
No. But it's not like you were saying something that wasn't true.
No.
You're just pointing out the truth.
And he was changing the manifesto in radio interviews. And no members were consulted when he became leader. He just announced it because you can if you own a political party. Yeah. But they've got into high dudgeon with us, and also they don't like the fact the Mayor has been campaigning very hard, reminding people that if you vote for reform, and you must take this on board very seriously, if you vote for reform and you're worried about a supermajority, well, worry even more if you vote for reform, because normally that is a vote that would be going to the Tory party.
Well, exactly. I mean, I was looking at charts this morning, and basically if you add up the reform prediction and the Tory predictions, they pretty much amount to the same percentage of the vote that Labour are going to get. They are basically the same voters.
Yeah, which means we would be potentially in a hung parliament territory. And you see, Labour will win the election with a very large majority, and possibly Corbyn has the biggest majority. Starmer has a bigger majority than Tony Blair, with a smaller share of the vote than Jeremy Corbyn got.
I know.
And Jeremy Corbyn led Labour to a terrible defeat.
Which leads me to my next question. What do you think the chances of PR being called for are?
If Labour have a huge majority, eat your heart out, Nigel Farage, eat your heart out, Lib Dems, because back in 96, 97, when you and I were working on the Times, I was writing these dreary stories about Robin Cook, who was I've forgotten what job he had in the Labour opposition then. He was engaged in serious talks with the Lib Dems and Paddy Ashdown about changing the voting system if Labour won the election, because they thought they'd probably win with 10 or 20 seat majority.
And of course they didn't.
They won with 170 seat majority, and Tony Blair said to Paddy Ashdown, thank you, goodbye.
Bye.
No chance.
Yeah,
and if Labour win with a massive majority, they ain't going to change the system. Turkeys don't vote for Christmas.
And then, so we haven't actually seen much of Keir Starmer for the last few days. And they must have got Angela Rayner locked in a cupboard somewhere.
I hope so.
This is
Do you think any chance they've lost the key?
No, I think no. I personally think that he's a Trojan horse. I think she's going to find a way of becoming leader in the next 18 months. I mean, you've written about this today.
I have, and I pointed out that Keir Starmer, we know, is measuring up for the curtains in number 10, new curtains, I suppose, but at the same time is his deputy, who's uber ambitious and very left-wing, much more left-wing than he is, and calls herself a socialist.
But also, she is very clever.
She's much cleverer than people give her credit for.
And she's very streetwise.
She is.
And she has a lot of cunning, and she's a really tough woman if you think about where she's come from.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's not to be underestimated.
She's the darling of the party grassroots. She's the darling of the trade union movement because, not least, she was a trade union official herself. But it's curiously, I discovered 4 domains have been set up which say Angela 4 p.m, figure 4, Angela 4 p.m, FOR, Rayner 4 p.m, 4 of them. Now, it could be, and I've heard people say, nothing to do with her. Shocking suggestion. Shocking. Oh, perish the thought. But these domains were set up 3 days after Rayner and Starmer were cleared of improper behaviour during the do you remember the lockdown Beergate police investigation?
Well, I've written about this. I wrote about this in my column today because Starmer said that if he becomes Prime Minister, when he becomes Prime Minister, he's not going to he's going to try to avoid working on a Friday evening after 6 p.m.
Good luck with that.
And then I thought about this for 5 minutes, and then I remembered vaguely that there'd been that thing with him having a curry and some beers with some people in Durham. That. And I looked it up on my Google Calendar,
Friday night,
and it was a Friday night.
Brilliant.
So when it suits him, he's working late on a Friday night.
And he was drinking a beer out of a can.
And it was definitely...
eating pizza.
But the reason he got off, because Angela Rayner was there as well, the reason they both got off was because Durham Constabulary said it matched the requirement for an exemption, which was that it was a work do.
That's right. Amazing, isn't it? So these domains have been set up. I mean, it could be that somebody set them up thinking, if and when Rayner wants to run for leadership, we'll sell these domains to her. But it's more likely a sympathiser has set them up. Surely not with her knowledge, perish the thought. And it shows how ambitious she is.
Labour also really need to have, and they've never had a female leader.
Never.
They've never had a woman leader.
Ever. In 120 years.
They've still got a woman problem. I think, Starmer has changed his mind on the whole women with penises thing, but only because everybody...
Well, because Tony Blair told him to.
Because a man told him to do that, so obviously that's why he's done that. But also because I think that his people have understood that it is a real concern among women, and of course they need women to vote for him.
Yeah.
She's also quite unsound on this area. I don't really know.
Oh, yes, she is. And she's unsound on a lot of issues. Another thing I remembered, when the police were assisting local authority workers in Glasgow who were trying to get some illegal migrants on a bus or a van to get them out of the country. There was a big crowd intervened, and of course what happened, the local council gave in, migrants melted away, and Angela Rayner tweeted, I'm with the people of Glasgow. Disgraceful. That's going to be what we're going to see a lot more of, migrants pouring in, and she's very much on the side of the trans argument. As she said only last week, I'm not going to be pushed around by J.K. Rowling. Good luck with that.
Well, is it true that migrants are massing at Calais, or is that just one of those sort of mad kind of
I think there's going to be
theories?
a new Spanish Armada across the Channel. And
do you think Banksy's going to be supplying the boats?
Exactly. And I was told by more than one Labour MP we're praying for an awful lot of bad weather next week across the Channel.
Okay. Which Labour MP was that?
They're no MPs at the moment. They're just candidates, but very senior and very worried about it because it's suddenly going to be their problem. And the Rwanda migrants who've been rounded up to go to Rwanda in the next couple of weeks, they've been freed. Of course they have.
Yeah, I know. Ed Davey, finally, I mean, his election campaign has been very bizarre, hasn't it? Yeah,
but what he's successfully done by donning that ill-fitting wetsuit, and I can't remember what I don't remember which was
bungee jumping is his latest one.
Yeah, he also did. Is it Zumba dancing? That was really cringe-making because he hasn't really got the physique for a tight t-shirt, and you do not want to see him in lycra. But he has, by doing these gimmicks and stunts, distracted attention from his woeful role in the whole post office scandal. He was the post office minister who refused to see missed debates. He was the trigger for the ITV drama. He's now got a knighthood.
But I personally find his stunts a bit annoying and offensive because it is quite a serious business, politics, genuinely. And I think that I feel like he's trolling anyway. So enough of us. We're going to do something unusual. We're going to do a new thing. We're going to do some questions from our lovely listeners. And actually, we've had quite a few.
Yeah.
So I think we'll kick off with Lulu from Suffolk.
Why have they brought Boris back? He brought the house down.
It's a very good question.
It's a very good question. And Boris is Marmite, obviously. But
that's another one of my favourite sandwiches, Marmite and cheese.
Oh, very nice, actually. Not with butter, I hope.
No.
Good. The reason they brought Boris back, and they agonised over it, he did volunteer. I don't think Rishi went to him, which shows a lack of humility because he didn't want to be seen to be grovelling. There is so much evidence that some constituencies are so finely tuned with Reform voters or Tory voters wavering should they go to Reform that Boris is what they see as the one voice that can stop potential Tory voters going to Reform and will woo them back. Boris won the Red Wall single-handedly, along with Jeremy Corbyn, of course. That's why they brought him back.
Yeah.
And some seats, it could be just a couple of hundred votes. So if Boris swings a couple of hundred votes, worth it to get him back.
Were you actually there? Did you see him?
I wasn't there, but I saw it, and I was tipped off it was happening. And there were some very good lines. But what was curious, Rishi didn't introduce him on the stage. He introduced Rishi, but they weren't photographed together because, as you know, they can't stand the sight of each other.
Yeah.
Because Rishi blames Boris. Boris blames Rishi for bringing him down.
Right.
Because he resigned as Chancellor, and that was the end of him.
Next question from Jess.
I'll vote Green when I can because I like their policies, but I know they'll never win. Can you imagine a time when this isn't just a two-horse race between Tories and Labour?
Well, I don't know why anybody would vote Green. Let me just tell you for one thing.
Oh, that's not fair.
Their policies are fairly mad. So if you're earning over £50,000, they're going to tax you more. That's nurses, teachers, all sorts of people like that. And they also want to get to net zero tomorrow.
Yeah. But nevertheless, Jess is entitled to her opinion. Will it ever be more than two-horse race? I mean, not unless we have proportional representation.
Or unless Reform have a major breakthrough, but I think they won't have a major breakthrough. I think there'll be a handful of MPs, so it looks to me still like a two-horse race. But the Green Party, I just think their manifesto, which was laughed at by the Institute for Fiscal Studies, it just said it was ridiculous. It was just not costed.
Yeah, I think the leader of the party has done quite well in the sort of debates. But I think what you have to do is look at Brighton Council, which has been run. You live there.
Yes, shambles.
It's been run by the Greens for how long?
Too long,
and it's a total shambles. So I mean, I think they have some nice ideas, obviously, that an appeal to certain types of people. But I think in terms of their ability is.
And they're only aiming to get 4 MPs at this election, and I suspect they won't.
Yeah. Next question from Chris.
Hi, Sarah and Andrew. My name is Chris and I'm from Surrey. Suella Braverman has come out saying that the goal of the Tories should be forming a strong and aligned opposition. Is such a blatant admission of defeat really a helpful strategy for people who might still be undecided? Thanks.
Well, I have to say, I do think that you can be very effective in opposition if you're good. And I think the most important thing is to have an opposition.
Yeah.
And a strong one.
Yeah, which is why the supermajority is very worrying, because if some of the worst case scenarios, the Tories would be down to 50 to 60 seats. You cannot have a coherent opposition with those few numbers.
No.
And the real worry would be if the Liberal Democrats are in second place and become the official opposition, because let's face it, Sir Ed Davey, God's help us, he's not a leader of the opposition material.
But also they're politically aligned with Labour.
They are.
So it would actually just be a super majority.
It really would.
So that's the difficulty. I mean, I agree, it's not a sort of... I mean, I wrote my column today saying that I still think the Tories are the least bad option.
Yeah.
I mean, Kemi Badenoch famously said, politics is not about perfection, it's about choosing the least bad options. And it's true. Unfortunately, there are no silver bullets, there are no perfect solutions. Everything is always a compromise, and unless you understand that, you can't actually govern properly. And I think voters need to understand that as well, which is that, there are lots and lots of obstacles along the way, and sometimes you find a way through and it's not perfect, but it is nevertheless a way through. I agree. I see what Chris is saying, but I don't think it's I think it's so important that we still have a robust opposition.
Yeah, and the fact is, if they hadn't keep warning people that Labour are heading for a supermajority, I think it will make those shy Tories who think, I'm going to stay home. I'm so fed up with the Tories. They've been so hopeless. I'm not going to bother. They'll think, actually, I don't want to give Keir Starmer a 200-seat majority, because he can then do what
that's
he likes.
effective.
And let's not forget the first thing he'll do is bring in votes for 16-year-olds to try and permanently entrench himself in number 10.
Yeah. And finally, our last question from Lindsay.
My name is Lindsay Brett, and I would like to know from Keir Starmer, where will my son go to school in September when I cannot afford to send him back to his private school? I've already contacted the local school, and with Not the Right Religion, to be able to go to that one, and they're already full. The other schools admitted that they are unable to be able to work at my son's level that he's at now. So what happens to him? Why tax aspiration? I'm not rich. I drive a rubbish car and don't have holidays, so I can give him an education. But why are you always knocking the people like me who are trying to work hard?
I mean, that's quite a heartbreaking question, isn't it? Because her poor kid is going to have to, she's not going to have any choice about where he goes.
And the suggestions are there'll be at least 40,000 parents like Lindsay in this situation.
Yeah.
If you remember Emily Thornberry, who's the Shadow Attorney General, she said, well, if there is an expansion in the number of class size in the beginning, so be it. So be it. Actually, most schools are full to bursting anyway, unless they're failing schools.
But you see, a lot of people like Lindsay will be sending their child to private school not because they want them to become toffs or because they want them to sort of,
because the state school's rubbish.
Because the local state school is not good enough, and they don't want their child to end up, in a gang or taking loads of drugs or whatever, because these schools are completely sort of, a lot of them are really very bad, and it's it was always thus. I mean, I remember when I was at state school in the 80s, it was the same. It's just how it is. These things are very difficult to. And I suppose some parents, I just do think parents need to have the choice.
Yeah.
I mean, you can decide that you want your child to learn things the tough way, and that's fine. That's one way of doing it. But I think taking away people's choice is very bad. I think it's a fundamental difference between Labour and Tories.
I agree, and they're going to do it immediately. It'll be in the first budget. It'll get through easily because they're going to have a big majority. Another reason, if you have got your child in a private school, think about this. It's going to cost you a lot of money, particularly if you've got 2 or 3 kids. But these fees could be in place by October.
Well, they've said it's a priority that they're going to actually crack on with it straight away.
I'd say January at the latest. And it is pernicious, and it is clear.
I wonder how many people will just homeschool their children. I would.
I'm sure that
probably
will happen.
I think I'd just take them out.
There's 600,000 children in the private sector education system in England, and they're going to be seriously affected. But it won't affect the kids at Eton.
No, of course not,
mum
because
and
their
dad's can
parents are
afford
so
that.
wealthy. It doesn't really
Yeah.
make any difference. It's it's the difference between maybe one Caribbean holiday a year or not.
Yeah, and it's the
And
it's the country private school. It's the
it's
small
exactly.
it's the aspirational private
Yes,
school.
it's people who've thought, well, okay, I don't really like what my local school is offering,
Yeah,
so I'm going to go for something else, and they will have their choice taken away from them, and
Yeah.
I think that is a shame. I do
Yeah.
think that is a
So,
shame.
Lindsay, if you've got a Labour MP, the moment they're elected, bombard them.
Yeah,
Ask them,
definitely.
ask them where you're going to send your child to school.
Exactly.
And I hope things work out for you.
I mean, the thing is, I think that you could say that, the aspiration to improve the state sector so that people don't feel they have to send their child to private school is a very good aspiration, but you have to do it that way round.
Yeah,
You can't just pull the rug out from under people's feet.
exactly. And what?
Because also children only get one chance.
Yeah.
I mean, my two children had their education completely torpedoed by COVID.
Yeah.
And you don't get a second chance when you're
No,
a child, unfortunately.
It can't come back.
No.
And they're adamant that this is a great idea, Labour. They smirk when I challenge them over it.
Yeah, it's class warfare.
It is. It's envy, and it shows it's the true colour of Labour, I'm afraid. The mask slips when they talk about this.
This is one that we got on email from Anne, and it says Keir Starmer said he would not be taxing working people. So where does that leave pensioners?
Well, of course, some pensioners work, but the pensioners who don't, remember, the Tories have said they will introduce a pension plus, so the state pension will never be taxed under a Tory government. Labour refused to commit to it. So be very worried.
But presumably, if you're drawing a state pension, you've paid taxes all your life.
You
So
have.
you've already paid tax. So why
Yeah.
should you have to pay it twice?
I know. Well, you're paying it on your private pension already,
Well, exactly.
and Labour. It seems to me that Labour may come after your state pension as
Right.
well.
So I don't know how they think that pensioners are going to survive.
Yeah, I remember there was one year when Gordon Brown was Prime Minister. The pension went up for pensioners by 10p a week. Do you remember that?
Yeah, outrageous.
Terrible.
From Adam via email, how can we justify our continued use of first past the post electoral system, especially when millions of people are now not being directly represented in Parliament? It's possible a party could get over 5 to 10 million votes in a general election and not even get a single MP. It could suggest we are in fact living in a false democracy, could it not? Well, we've just touched on this earlier, but I think he's right.
Yeah, well, Nigel Farage would point out back in 2015, UKIP got nearly 4 million votes and 1 MP.
Yeah.
And the Liberal Democrats got fewer votes and a lot more MPs.
Yeah.
So, but why? But people.
I mean, the thing is, it's difficult for the Tories because they've always advocated for first past the post.
They have, because and they like it. They say it's the right way because it maintains the relationship between a constituency and MP, so people knows who their MP is. But actually, they like it because it's kept them in power for most of the last 100 years.
Yeah. From Lynn via email, what are the plans of any of the parties for free care for the elderly? It seems so unfair that sensible people have to sell their houses to pay for care, but those who don't own a home get it for free. Now, this is something that I feel quite strongly about.
Yeah.
Because I started the campaign here on the paper a few years ago now, about 5 or 6, I think.
Yeah.
To try and, get social care as part of, paid for.
Yeah.
And it's just, Boris Johnson promised that he would do something about this.
He said it in
2019.
He said it outside the number 10.
Yeah.
When he got in.
And nothing's happened.
No.
It was kicked into the long grass, into the long grass. I mean, obviously,
it was blown, of course, by COVID, of course.
Yeah, yeah. But it is a hot potato that I think will return and needs to be dealt with.
And it has not been, to the shame of all the MPs, the political parties, a major issue in the campaign because none of them have a solution.
No, there's no. I mean, they have no solution because they have no solution to the NHS, so they can't have a solution to social care.
If you remember in the 2017 election campaign, Theresa May introduced something which rapidly became known as the dementia tax.
Yes.
She withdrew it after 5 days.
I mean, I think the obvious thing to do on this is to get insurance companies to put together some insurance models so that you can start paying.
That's what they do on the continent.
Exactly, so that you can have, it's like an extension of your private healthcare.
Yeah.
That you have a social care insurance policy, but that doesn't seem to have happened. I mean, I think there was a review, and I think someone did suggest that, and no one did it.
No.
So that is something that needs to be dealt with. Anyway, I think that's enough. That's all we've got space for.
I think it is.
I have a plan to raise money. Can I just tell you what it is?
Yes.
I don't understand why we don't have motorway tolls in this country. Every other country in Europe has motorway tolls, and they raise quite a lot of money.
Yes. I'd also introduce charges for museums. and art galleries.
Yeah.
You can't get into the Louvre unless you pay.
Yeah.
Why are all these people?
But I do
people
think
coming to our
motorway
country?
charges is a sort of no-brainer.
Even if it's £1.
I mean, it's just crazy that.
I know.
Anyway, I don't know. Maybe
Good
I'm
idea.
Too European.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening or watching. We'll be back actually on Friday for an election.
An election.
Not an erection. Not an erection special, an election special. You can contact us by emailing reaction@dailymail.co.uk, leave a comment on Spotify, or even send us a voice note on WhatsApp 07796 657 512. Please start your message with the word reaction.
See you on Friday.
Bye.